What's up, everyone? Great way to start the week, right? Coffee in hand. Brand new camera announcement by Sony, Sony ZV-1. You're here because obviously the title of this video. Well, I've actually had a camera on hand for the past couple weeks. I've been using it very secretly around my house and around the neighborhood. Had to sign my life away, couldn't tell a soul, but now I can talk about it. Now, for the majority of this review, we'll be using the ZV-1 for the video footage. However, if I'm going to be shooting the camera, I'll be using something else because I don't think this camera can shoot itself. Or can it? No, it can't. Anyway, before we get into the review, I do want to let you know that we are partnering with Sony Singapore on this project. Having said that, I'm still going to give you my honest thoughts on the camera and the features I think they're going to benefit you the most. With that, let's talk about the ZV-1. Alright guys, before we get into this review, I do want to let you know I'm going to keep things simple in terms of terminology for this video. And the reason being is when we talk about video cameras, right? There are a lot of settings, there's a lot of features in the ZV-1 that it packs a big punch for a small camera, right? And for a lot of you out there, it can sound Greek. It sounds Greek to me, some of it. You know, when I watch these videos, I'm like, what are they talking about? I have no clue. Anyway, we're going to keep it simple, we're going to have fun, but any questions you have, hit me in the comment section below. With that, let's talk about design first. Now, the design of the ZV-1 has a lot of the DNA from the RX100 series, right? But there have been some changes. Now, the edges around the camera are a little bit more round, and the texture on the body, I don't know what it is, to be honest with you, but I don't know if it's a different material that Sony's using for this, but it feels to have a little bit more texture, a little bit more grip to it. And it feels a little bit more rugged, so I want to throw this in my backpack or rucksack. I don't think it's going to scratch or ding that easily. And also on the right side of the camera, there's this little grip. It's like a little baby grip. It's cute, but it helps with stabilization, and especially if you're like want to walk around with the camera on the go and you want to do some photography or videography, that little grip does come in handy. Now, for the most part, that's pretty much the front of the camera. I mean, you got the Sony logo, you got the Zeiss logo, but it's pretty simple looking camera on the front of it. But when you go to the top, that's when things are very different from the RX100 series. This camera, you can tell right away with that big recording button, it is designed for video first, photography second. Yes, there's a shutter release button. There is a zoom dial there. You also have your on and off button, your mode button, your C1 button, which is for background defocus. But it's pretty simple on the top of the camera when it comes to buttons. But when we move to the middle of the camera, that's when things are really different as well, because you have a very large internal microphone on this camera and it sounds good. It's great for that on the go if you want to do some video footage of yourself or family or friends. And you know, audio is really important for video nowadays, and so Sony was thinking about that with the ZV-1, and they put a really good internal mic inside of this thing. Now, when you move to the far end of the camera, then you also have a hot shoe, but it's a multifunctional hot shoe. And we've seen this kind of hot shoe in the Sony a7R IV, Sony a9 II. What this hot shoe does is that it connects to, let's say, one of Sony's additional microphones, the microphone that I'm using currently. It's a stereo microphone. It's the ECM XY-ST1M. And it also has that same connection on it. So as soon as you slide the microphone into the hot shoe, the connections from the mic go into the camera. So the audio coming from that microphone goes right into your video feed. No wires, no batteries, you are good to go just by sliding in that microphone. That's pretty much the top of the camera. All right, now let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the rotatable and flip out display. Sony has done it. Yes. You know, we've been asking Sony for years for this. We really have. A lot of the cameras I reviewed, a lot of the reviews I've watched and read online, they were asking Sony, please give us this type of display. And Sony's done it with the ZV-1. Thank you, Sony, because this is such a welcome addition. I'm looking at it right now. I can see the eye tracking on my eye. I can see my aperture, shutter speed, ISO, all the information I want to see. It is all right there. It's a beautiful 3-inch display, and you know what? You can rotate it around, so if you want to get some really creative angles while you're shooting, you can do that as well. And if you want to protect the display, if you want to throw this in your backpack, just rotate it, flip it inwards, and you're good to go. No issues at all. All right. Now let's talk about ports on this camera, because there's 3 ports. Very simple, but they're ports of necessity because you gotta have a mic jack, right? If you want to use a third-party microphone, you can do that with this camera. Then you've got a micro USB port, and then you've got a micro HDMI port. Now, in regards to the micro USB port, I know a number of you are probably asking, why not USB-C? I asked that question as well. Sony told me to talk to the engineers. I didn't have their phone number, so I'm guessing it has to do with internals and electronics and a lot of things that are way above my pay grade. But it works. But nonetheless, you can charge the camera via the USB port, you can connect an external power bank to it, and you can also attach one of Sony's tripod grips that can control the camera via the USB port, so you're good to go in that regards. Micro HDMI port is very important, especially these days. I'll talk more about that when it comes to my experience with the camera, but you can use it to connect to a TV and also external sources. It's pretty cool how you can use it. Anyway, that's it for the ports. Now let's talk about the lens. Because the lens is one of the most important things on a camera, right? What the lens sees, the sensor sees. What the sensor sees, we see. Now on the RX100 series, minus the 5A and the older versions, we have a 200mm zoom lens on that. Now Sony's gone with the 24-70 1.8 to 2.8 Zeiss Sonar T lens on the ZV-1. And this is a great focal length for videographers out there and for just day-to-day photography and video, because you get that 24mm for that wide shot. And then if you want 70mm for, let's say, a portrait shot of your boyfriend, husband, girlfriend, cousin, aunt, whoever you want to take a picture of, or even your kids or your dog, but you want that nice bokeh in the background, 70mm is really going to come in handy. And you got an aperture of 1.8 to 2.8. So you get a really fast lens. And what I mean by fast is that obviously the lower the aperture number, the more light that comes in, but also you get more background separation. So if I want that nice bokeh in the background, I want to shoot at 1.8. Now you're probably asking, but that sounds great indoors in a situation like this, but what happens when I'm outdoors in sunlight? What happens then, right? My images are going to be overexposed. No, there's an ND filter inside of this camera. Yes, you can set it to auto or you can turn it on and off. It works fantastic. Now, for those who do not know what an ND filter is, I'll put it in layman's terms. It's like putting a sunglass on your lens. So what it does is it cuts the light coming into the lens, but you can still keep that wide open aperture. So I can still get that 1.8, that nice bokeh in the background outside, but I'm not gonna get an overexposed image. Okay, so that's where an ND filter comes into play. That is a really nice addition to have for that, and it's actually helped me out a lot, especially when shooting outside with the ZV-1. Now that's it for the outside of the camera. Now let's talk about the specs and some of the features of the ZV-1. All right, let's talk about what is inside of this camera. Now you've got a 20.1 CMOS megapixel sensor. It is a 1-inch sensor. You got the Bion Z processor. In terms of video recording, you can do 1080 or HD up to 120 frames per second, or 4K up to 30 frames per second, and high frame rate mode up to 960 frames per second. So what is high frame rate mode? For those who do not know, it is very slow. That wasn't a very good example. That was really bad. I'm gonna overlay some actual high frame rate video here just to kind of make up for that. Why do I do these things to myself, Bobby? Why? Anyway, okay, I might cut that out. I should cut it out. Anyway, let's talk about battery life, because battery life is important on a compact camera like this, especially when it's very video centric. Okay, if you want to shoot at 1080 or HD at 60p, you can get actual shooting times of 45 minutes or a continuous shooting time of 75 minutes. That means you're running the camera nonstop for 75 minutes of continuous shooting times with it in HD. Now, if you want to shoot at 4K at 24p, you can get continuous shooting times up to 30 minutes. Not bad at all. Let's talk about image stabilization. It is inside of this camera. It is called Steady Shot. You get 3 modes. You get active, standard, and of course you can turn it off. Don't turn it off. It's always nice to have smooth footage, you know what I mean? And it really kind of smoothens it out. Otherwise, you get that really kind of shaky movie video. Have you ever watched movies like that, the camera is so shaky that you almost want to like, I can't watch it anymore? I had that happen in a couple action movies, man. I had to step out of the theater. You're okay with this camera. You're good to go. You won't have what I had just now. Not with this. You're good. Now let's talk about something else that is new inside this camera, and that is the color science. Sony has improved the color science on the ZV-1. They've really concentrated on skin tones to give it a nice little warmth and glow and kind of little reddish tones to it. See my skin? I look healthy now. I look like I've been out in the sun. It doesn't give me a tan, but it just kind of makes me look a little bit more less pasty than what I am when I'm not shooting. Yeah, I really need to get back out in the sun again. I'm really missing that. Okay, besides that, there's a couple other features as well. There's auto exposure, which helps auto expose the face when you're walking and talking, because sometimes we're outside or in our homes and we go through, let's say, a hallway or a darker area, and your video could just be shot because there's not that much light in it. So the camera's going to compensate for that by always concentrating on the face to auto expose it. I guess there's some sort of AI going on inside of this camera. I have no clue, but it's a welcome addition. Now let's talk about two other features that are really cool on this camera that make it very simple to get a really cool look. First, it's called background defocus. I mentioned this earlier in the review. It's one of the buttons on top of the camera. Now, when you press background defocus, what it does is it blurs out the background. Now, it's not a synthetic blur, or it's not like one of those things you see on like one of those teleconferencing apps or a smartphone. No, what it's doing, it's forcing the camera to a 1.8 aperture to get that nice depth of field. And it's great in that sense because it's not going to, like, let's say you have a messy room and you want to cover your messy room, it's not going to hide your messy room, but it's just going to give you that nice depth of field, a little bit more cinematic look to your video. Next, let's talk about another feature called product showcase. Now, imagine for a moment I'm a beauty vlogger. That's right, I'm going to talk to you about the latest lipstick, mascara, blush. Yeah, I don't think anybody would ever hire me for this, but let's just play along for the video's sake. And I want to show you the lipstick, and I want to show it to you up to camera. Well, with a lot of cameras these days, especially the ZV-1, it has eye tracking, so it's just locked onto my eyes. So it's always focusing on my face. So no matter if I put the product in front of the camera, it's not going to show it. But by the press of a button, all of a sudden, the product comes in focus as I bring it closer to the camera. I can move it around different parts of the frame, and it always stays in focus, but when I pull it out, then it goes back to focusing on my face. Essentially what the camera is doing is it's turning off eye tracking and just focusing on the subject closer to the lens. It's a very welcome addition, especially if you do a lot of YouTube videos or vlogging or product showcasing and you want to show, no pun intended, but if you want to showcase a product like that, this button comes in handy, and all I have to do is press one button and you're good to go. Now let's talk about photography for a moment, because this camera takes really good photos. It does. And if you want to capture like fast moving subjects, you can get up to 24 frames per second on high speed burst mode with this thing. It's very, very impressive. Great camera to take photos and video. Now, I want to talk to you about my experiences and my overall thoughts about the ZV-1. So what's my experience using this camera over the past couple weeks? I was impressed, honestly. I didn't know what to expect when they said, hey, look, we have this new compact camera. I mean, look, Sony gave me really basic information at the very beginning. I really didn't know a lot about this. So it was more about discovery for me, how I would use this camera and how I would do this video for you, because, it's about me giving you my honest thoughts. And I was really impressed with the feature set with the price point, because at 999 Singapore dollars, I'm thinking, okay, there's going to be some things left out of this camera that's going to be left for more of a higher end camera. But Sony's kind of put a lot of things in here that I wasn't expecting. It sort of reminded me of the A7 III. Remember when the A7 III came out and it just sort of shocked the full frame camera market because it was just such a great camera at a very, very competitive price? That's what the ZV-1 is for the compact camera market. It's a very full featured camera at a price point that is attractive, and it's video centric, because a video is a thing that we're doing a lot nowadays, especially for Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, a variety of different applications, or work. People are doing workout videos, they're doing teleconferencing, there's so many things we're using video more nowadays, but you want good video quality. The ZV-1 can help you in that regard. Remember earlier in this review, I was talking about the HDMI port, and I was saying that there's a really valid use for this. Well, it's here. We're doing a lot of teleconferencing these days, right? We're doing Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meets, a variety of different applications. And have you ever done conferencing with someone with a webcam and it's really poor resolution and the audio isn't fantastic? You know what I mean? It just sort of just like, okay, you can use the ZV-1 in place of your webcam. You can do that. Hook it up via the HDMI port to an HDMI capture device to your laptop. A few settings later, you can now stream video from this camera, and you're going to get very good audio. Speaking of audio, I want to give you a sample of what the audio sounds like with the internal mic without the windscreen and with the windscreen, because what's cool is they actually include this little mini windscreen inside the box that you just, all you do is you slide onto the hot shoe and it covers the microphone. So it sort of alienates a lot of that wind noise when you're outside. Check it out. I'm doing an internal mic test on the ZV-1 and I'm almost about half a meter away from the camera currently. And so now I'm going to turn on the fan here to get a sense of what it sounds like when there's wind coming out. So I'm turning the fan there. So as you can tell, as I'm talking, there's wind coming to the microphone right now, so you're probably going to hear some interference. Now I'm going to do a test what it sounds like with the windscreen. Now I'm going to do a test to see what it sounds like with the windscreen attached to the microphone. No, this is not a toy. It's not a toy. Stop, stop, stop. It's not a toy. I know. You don't get this. This goes on the camera. It goes on the camera. No. This goes on the camera, okay? It's not a toy. You cannot shoot that. All right. Hold on. All right, now that the windscreen is on it, no problem. Don't lick that. Please don't lick that. Don't lick that. That has to go back to Sony. Come on. Come back here. You're blocking the fan. Okay. You sit here. There you go. This is the sound with the fan on the camera. And you see the difference in sound quality with the windscreen on and off. And this comes inside the box with the ZV-1. Can you please let me film? All right. And that's the ZV-1. It's a little compact camera that's got a lot of features that you're gonna really enjoy. Now it's gonna be 999 Singapore dollars and it'll be coming out, I believe around the beginning of June, somewhere thereabouts. So look out for it. With that, thanks for watching. Smash that like button if you like this video. Follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube. Until the next one, take care.